The morning alarm rang through the halls of the Galactic Military Academy. Students from across the known worlds hurried to their classes, their different forms creating a colorful mix in the corridors. Some walked on 2 legs like humans, others on 4 or 6. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few seemed to be made of living crystal. Jake Martinez walked slowly through these halls, trying not to stare at his classmates. Everything here was so different from Earth. The ceilings were much higher, to fit the tall alien students. The doors were wider. Even the air smelled different, filtered and cleaned by machines he did not understand. He had been on the space station for 3 days now, but he still felt like he was in a dream. Just 2 months ago, he had been a regular college student in Colorado. Now he was the first human ever to attend the most important military school in the galaxy. The other students looked at him as he passed. Some seemed curious, others looked confused. A few made sounds that might have been laughter. Jake understood why. Compared to most of them, he looked very small and weak. He reached the classroom and stopped at the door. Through the window, he could see his new classmates. There were the Corthany students, each one nearly 8 feet tall with thick gray skin that looked like armor. Their muscles bulged under their clothes, and their faces had no expression at all. Out near the back sat 3 Zephyrians, insect-like beings with 4 arms and large compound eyes. They made clicking sounds when they talked, and their heads moved in quick, jerky motions as they watched everything around them. The Sorok students were easier to spot because of their bright green scales and the way they flicked their tongues to taste the air. Jake had read that they could sense heat from across a room, and their bites were poisonous. There were many other species he recognized from his study materials, and several he did not. All of them looked like they were born for war. All of them looked dangerous. Jake took a deep breath and opened the door. The talking stopped. Every eye in the room turned to look at him. He felt his face get hot, but he walked to an empty seat in the middle of the room and sat down. "Look at how small it is," whispered a voice behind him. Jake did not turn around. "Does it even have any natural weapons?" asked another voice. "I heard its homeworld is completely safe. No dangerous animals at all." Jake opened his notebook and pretended to read, but he could hear every word. He had expected this. The briefing officers on Earth had warned him that most galactic species saw humans as weak. They were not completely wrong. Humans were not the strongest, or the fastest, or the toughest species in the galaxy. The door opened again, and the room fell silent. Commander Vex High entered, his 4 eyes scanning the students. He was an Altarian, one of the older species in the galaxy. His silver scales caught the light as he moved, and when he spoke, his voice filled the room. "Good morning, students. Today, we begin advanced tactical warfare training. But first, I want to introduce someone special." His eyes found Jake. "We have our first human exchange student joining us. Please welcome Jake Martinez from the planet Earth." Jake stood up and nodded to the class. A few students nodded back politely, but most just stared. "Now," Commander Vex High continued, "let us begin today's lesson on predator classification." The commander touched a control on his desk, and the room darkened. A holographic display appeared in the center, showing a fierce-looking creature with 6 legs and razor-sharp teeth. Throughout the galaxy, we classify predators into 5 categories based on their hunting ability and danger level. Tier 1 includes small ambush predators that hunt insects and small animals. Tier 5 represents apex predators capable of hunting entire species to extinction. The display changed to show different creatures. Some looked like giant spiders. Others resembled Earth animals, but with extra teeth, claws, or armor. A few were so strange that Jake could not even guess how they moved or ate. "Each of your homeworlds has contributed to our understanding of predator behavior," the commander said. Who can give us an example from their world? A Korthany student raised his massive hand. On Korth Prime, we have the Iron Bears. They stand 12 feet tall, and their claws can cut through metal. They are Tier 3 predators. Excellent, said Commander Vex High. The display showed a creature that looked like a bear crossed with a tank. Its fur was actually metal plates, and its eyes glowed red. A Zephyrian clicked rapidly and raised 2 arms. The hive hunters of Zephyr hunt in groups of 50. They can strip the flesh from a large animal in seconds. Tier 4 predators. The display showed swarms of creatures that looked like flying razors. Jake felt sick watching them work. More students shared examples. Each creature seemed more terrifying than the last. There were predators that could turn invisible, others that could burrow through solid rock, and some that hunted by controlling the minds of their prey. Finally, Commander Vex High looked at Jake. And what about Earth, Cadet Martinez? What predators does your homeworld offer? Jake felt every eye in the room focus on him again. He cleared his throat. Well, we have wolves. They hunt in packs and can track prey for many miles. And brown bears, which can weigh over 800 pounds and run 30 miles per hour. The room was quiet for a moment. Then someone laughed. Soon, several students were making the laughing sounds of their species. That is all? Asked a Sorok student, her tongue flicking out to taste Jake's scent. No natural armor? No energy weapons? No poison? No, Jake said simply. Just teeth and claws. How primitive, said another student. This one looked like she was made of purple crystal. On my world, our predators feed on pure energy. Your wolves and bears sound like pets. More laughter filled the room. Jake felt his face getting hot again, but he said nothing. Commander Vex High raised a hand for silence. Every world contributes to our knowledge, regardless of its predator classification. But Jake could see doubt in the commander's 4 eyes. Lesson continued with more examples and more complex classification systems. Jake took notes and tried to learn, but he could feel the other students watching him. Some seemed to feel sorry for him. Others looked like they thought he was wasting their time. When the class was almost over, Commander Vex High made an announcement that changed everything. Students, I have important news about your final examination for this course. The room became completely quiet. In 1 week, you will face a practical test unlike any before. You will enter our combat simulation arena to face a live predator. Jake looked up from his notes. We have acquired a Shadow Stalker from the death world of Kithara Prime. This is a Tier 4 predator, one of the most dangerous hunters known to galactic science. The commander touched his control again. The display showed a creature that made Jake's blood run cold. It stood 12 feet tall, on 6 legs that ended in claws as long as swords. Its body was covered in dark scales that seemed to shift and change color. Its head was mostly mouth, filled with rows of teeth like broken glass. The Shadow Stalker can become nearly invisible through adaptive camouflage. It can track prey across continents using senses we barely understand. It has never been successfully hunted by Academy students. Students throughout the room shifted. Nervously, even the confident Korthany looked worried. Your task is simple, the commander continued. Survive for 6 hours while being hunted. You may use standard military equipment and work in teams if you choose. Emergency extraction beacons will remove you from danger if activated, but using one means failing the examination. Jake stared at the holographic predator. Its eyes seemed to look right back at him. I should mention, Commander Vex High added, this particular Shadow Stalker is a veteran hunter. It has killed over 300 sentient beings across 4 different worlds. It was captured only after a 6-month military campaign that cost 12 elite commandos their lives. The room was dead silent now. You have 1 week to prepare. Study well, and may your ancestors protect you." As students filed out of the classroom, Jake heard them talking in worried voices. Some were already planning team strategies. Others wondered if they should drop the course. Jake gathered his things slowly, thinking about what he had just learned. A shadow stalker. A creature designed by evolution to be the perfect killer. A monster that had ended hundreds of lives. He thought about his grandfather, who had hunted dangerous game in the mountains of Colorado. He thought about the stories of early humans who had faced down saber-toothed tigers and cave bears with nothing but stone tools and courage. And he thought about something else, something the other students did not know about humans. Something that might surprise them very much. Jake smiled as he left the classroom. This was going to be interesting. The next morning, Jake woke up early and went to the Academy's training center. The huge room was already busy with students practicing for the Shadow Stalker test. Groups had formed based on species, each team using their natural advantages. To plan their survival strategy, near the strength training area, 5 Korthany students lifted weights that would crush a human. Their leader, a massive warrior named Grok, spoke in their deep, rumbling language. Jake had learned enough to understand the basic idea. They planned to use their thick skin and powerful muscles to fight the Shadow Stalker directly if it found them. "Stupid plan," clicked one of the Zephyrians as she flew past Jake's head. Her name was Zix, and she was talking to her 2 teammates. "Fighting is for creatures with no brains. We will stay in the air where the Shadow Stalker cannot reach us." The 3 insect-like students had been practicing aerial maneuvers for hours. Their compound eyes could see in many directions at once, and they could fly faster than most ground creatures could run. Jake watched them zoom around the high ceiling of the training room, their wings making a sound like buzzing saws. In the corner, a group of Saurak students sat perfectly still with their eyes closed. They were practicing their heat-sensing abilities, learning to detect warm bodies from greater distances. Their leader, a female named Sis, could apparently sense a mouse from half a mile away. Jake noticed other groups forming too. The crystal-like crystalline students worked together to create energy shields. The diplomatic hegemony students planned to use their knowledge of many languages to communicate with the Shadow Stalker if possible. Even the plant-like Chlorians had a strategy, planning to blend in with the arena's vegetation. But Jake trained alone. He spent hours in the combat simulator, studying every piece of information about Shadow Stalkers that the Academy database contained. He learned about their hunting patterns, their preferred prey, their home world of Kithara Prime. What he found was not encouraging. Kithara Prime was a world where everything was designed to kill everything else. The gravity was twice as strong as Earth normal. The rain was acid that could eat through metal. The plants were poisonous. The water was toxic. And the atmosphere would kill most species in minutes. And the Shadow Stalkers were the top predators of this nightmare world. Jake read report after report of military encounters with these creatures. Elite soldiers with the best weapons and armor had been torn apart in seconds. Entire squads had vanished without a trace, leaving only claw marks on walls and pools of blood. Martinez. Jake looked up from his study screen to see Ben Cooper standing nearby. Ben was a hegemony student, tall and blue-skinned with kind eyes. He was one of the few aliens who had been friendly to Jake since his arrival. "You should join our group," Ben said, sitting down across from Jake. "We could use someone with your unique perspective." "Thanks, Ben, but I work better alone." "It's kind of a human thing." Ben frowned, an expression that looked strange on his blue face. "Jake, no offense, but you're going to die if you face that thing alone. Even working together, most of us probably won't survive 6 hours." Jake saved his research and closed the screen. "Maybe, but humans have faced worse odds before." Worse than a shadow stalker? Ben laughed, but it was not a happy sound. Jake, these things are legendary. They're the reason most species avoid the Cathara system entirely. Before Jake could answer, a shadow fell across their table. Jake looked up to see Zara, the purple-scaled Altarian, who was the top student in their class. She was beautiful in an alien way, with silver markings on her scales and intelligent golden eyes. "Human Jake," she said, her voice smooth and musical. "I have been researching your species since yesterday's class." "Oh?" Jake leaned back in his chair. "Find anything interesting?" "Very interesting," Zara said, pulling up a chair. "According to the Galactic Database, your homeworld is classified as a Class 2 garden world. Moderate climate, abundant resources, minimal predation pressure. How exactly did your species develop intelligence without natural selection pressure?" Other students had begun to gather around, curious about this conversation. Jake could see Grok and his Korthani friends listening, along with several Zephyrians and Sorok. "The data indicates that humans evolved as persistence hunters," Zara continued, reading from her tablet. "You would chase animals until they collapsed. From exhaustion. Hardly the behavior of a true predator. More like ... scavengers who got lucky." Some of the watching students made sounds that might have been laughter. Jake noticed Grok's lips pull back in, what was probably a smile, showing his metal teeth. "You know," Jake said calmly, "humans have a saying. It's not the size of the dog. In the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog." Zara tilted her head, confused. "What is a dog?" "Maybe you'll find out after the test," Jake said, standing up. "If you're still around to ask questions." The group of students muttered among themselves as Jake walked away. He heard words like primitive and delusional and dead in the first hour. Jake spent the rest of the day in the physical training area, working on his endurance and reflexes. His scores were not impressive compared to his classmates. He could not lift as much as a Korthani, move as fast as a Zephyrian, or see as well as a Sorok. But there were other things he practiced that the alien students did not understand. He practiced being quiet. He practiced being patient. He practiced moving through different types of terrain without leaving obvious tracks. These were skills his grandfather had taught him during hunting trips in the Colorado mountains. That evening, Jake called his family on Earth using the Academy's communication system. His sister Lisa appeared on the screen from her research station in Alaska, where she studied wild animals for the government. "Hey, little brother," Lisa said, smiling. "How's space school treating you?" "Oh, you know, the usual. Tomorrow, I get hunted by a 12-foot-tall invisible monster that's killed hundreds of people." Lisa laughed, thinking he was joking. "Sounds like a typical Tuesday for our family. Dad still talks about that time you tracked that mountain lion for 16 hours when you were 15. That was different, Lisa. This thing is designed to kill." Lisa's expression became serious. "Jake, remember what Grandpa always said about hunting dangerous game. The animal might be stronger, faster, and meaner than you, but you're human. That means you're the most dangerous thing on any planet, because you're the only one that refuses to quit." After the call ended, Jake sat in his small dormitory room, looking out at the stars through the window. His room was plain and simple. Not like the specialized quarters some of the other species needed. The Chlorians needed rooms full of special lights. The Aquarians needed water-filled chambers. The Crystallins needed rooms that could conduct energy. Humans just needed a bed and some air to breathe. The next few days passed quickly. Jake continued to train alone while his classmates worked in their groups. He noticed that the alien students were becoming more nervous as the test approached. Some had started wearing protective gear, even during regular classes. Others practiced their emergency beacon activation procedures over and over. On the fourth day, Commander Vex High made an announcement that made everyone even more worried. Students, the Shadow Stalker has arrived and is being prepared for your examination. I have personally observed this creature, and I must warn you, it is larger and more aggressive than our previous specimens. The commander's 4 eyes looked around the classroom, studying each student. This particular Shadow Stalker was captured after it killed an entire research team on a mining planet. It took 6 months and a full military battalion to bring it down alive. 12 elite commandos died in the process. Jake felt the mood in the room become even more tense. Even Grok and his confident Corthony teammates looked worried. The creature will be released into the arena tomorrow morning with a 30-minute head start to establish its territory. The arena has been configured to match conditions on Kithara Prime, including increased gravity and environmental hazards. Several students shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Remember, this is a survival exercise, not a combat mission. Your goal is to remain alive and undetected for 6 hours. The Shadow Stalker will be actively hunting you. Emergency extraction beacons will teleport you to safety, but using one means failing the course. That night, Jake lay in his bed thinking about the test. Around him, he could hear his classmates moving restlessly in their rooms. Some were probably not sleeping at all, but Jake felt something different from his classmates. While they felt fear and worry, he felt something else. Something that reminded him of stories his grandfather told about hunting grizzly bears in the wilderness, and the look in the old man's eyes when he described tracking a wounded animal through thick forest. Jake felt excitement. He thought about all the reports he had read, all the data about shadow stalkers and their hunting methods. He thought about Kithara Prime and its deadly environment. He thought about the hundreds of soldiers and researchers who had died facing these creatures, and he thought about something else, something that none of his classmates knew about humans, something that might surprise them very much when they went. Test began. Jake smiled in the darkness and went to sleep. Tomorrow, his classmates would learn what it really meant to be from Earth. The examination arena was the largest room Jake had ever seen. The ceiling was so high it disappeared into darkness, and the floor stretched out for miles in every direction. The Academy's computers had changed the entire space to look like the Deathworld of Kithara Prime. Jagged rocks stuck up from the ground like broken teeth. Strange metal trees with sharp edges grew in twisted patterns. Pools of bubbling acid sent up clouds of poisonous steam. The air was thick and hard to breathe, and Jake could feel the increased gravity pulling at his body with every step. 42 students stood at the starting line, each wearing basic survival gear. Jake looked around at his classmates and saw fear in many faces. Even the tough Corthony students seemed nervous, their thick gray skin darker than usual with worry. Commander Vex High stood before them, his silver scales gleaming under the arena's artificial lights. Students, the Shadow Stalker was released 30 minutes ago and has had time to choose its hunting ground. Your test begins now. Jake checked his equipment one more time. He carried a standard energy rifle that could kill most creatures with a single shot. He had basic camping gear, water purification tablets, and a simple combat knife. His equipment looked almost primitive compared to what his classmates carried. The Corthony team had heavy armor and massive weapons. The Zephyrians wore special flight suits with energy shields. The Sarok group carried heat-seeking devices and poison detectors. Every team had gear designed for their species' special abilities. Remember, the commander continued, this is a survival test, not a hunting mission. Stay alive for 6 hours. The Shadow Stalker will be looking for you. If you must use your emergency beacon, you will be teleported to safety, but you will fail the course. Jake noticed that some students' hands were already moving toward their emergency beacons, and the test had not even started yet. The examination begins now, Commander Vex-High announced. May fortune smile upon you. The students scattered in different directions, like frightened animals. The Corthony team ran toward the rocky hills, where their armor would protect them best. The Zephyrians took to the air, their wings buzzing as they flew toward the metal. Forest. The Sorok group headed for the thermal areas where their heat vision would work well. Jake surprised everyone by walking straight toward the center of the arena, where the terrain was most dangerous and the Shadow Stalker was most likely to be waiting. In the observation room above the arena, Ben Cooper watched the screens with other students who had finished this test in previous years. What is he doing? Ben said, shaking his blue head. That's suicide. On the main display screen, they could see Jake moving calmly through the dangerous landscape. He did not run or hide like the others. He walked at a steady pace, as if he was taking a pleasant hike through a park. Commander Vex-High studied the tactical display with his 4 eyes. Interesting. The human is either very brave or very foolish. My money is on foolish, said another observer. Meanwhile, Jake had found a narrow canyon between 2 tall rock walls. He set up what looked like a simple camp. He built a small fire, prepared some food, and sat down as if he was enjoying a camping trip. Through her scope from half a mile away, Zara watched in amazement. He has lost his mind, she whispered into her communicator. He is acting like he is on vacation. But Jake was not relaxing. He was doing something his species had learned to do over millions of years of evolution. He was hunting. The fire was not for warmth. It was bait. His calm behavior was not ignorance. It was confidence. His choice of location was not random. It was strategy. Jake knew the Shadow Stalker was watching him. He could feel it, a sensation that every human hunter recognized. The weight of predatory attention, the feeling of being studied by something that wanted to kill you. He had read all the reports about Shadow Stalker attacks. The creature liked to strike from behind, using its camouflage to get close before attacking with its deadly claws. It was patient and careful, studying its prey before making a move. In the first hour, the Shadow Stalker found its first victim. A Corthony student's emergency beacon, activated as razor-sharp claws, cut through his supposedly unbreakable armor. The student appeared in the medical bay, shaken but alive. It was invisible, the student reported to Commander Vex-High. I never saw it coming. It cut through my armor like it was made of paper. 20 minutes later, a second beacon activated. This time it was a Zephyrian who had thought flying would keep her safe. The Shadow Stalker had climbed the canyon walls with impossible speed and pulled her from the sky. It can climb, the Zephyrian said, her compound eyes wide with terror. It moves like gravity means nothing to it. In the observation room, the watching students became more worried. 2 of their best fighters had been taken out in less than an hour. How many do you think will survive? Asked one student. At this rate, maybe 5 or 6, answered another. On the screen, they could see Jake still sitting by his fire, completely calm. He was reading a book he had brought, as if a legendary predator was not hunting him at all. The human has given up, said a watching Sorok. He is just waiting to die. But Jake had not given up. He was waiting for something specific. He had studied the Shadow Stalker's behavior patterns from all the military reports. The creature would watch him for a while, trying to understand why this prey was acting so strangely. Then it would move closer to investigate. Jake stood up and walked to the edge of his camp's light. He turned his back to the darkness and pretended to look at something in the distance. To the watching students, it looked like he was asking to be killed. To Jake, it was an invitation. The Shadow Stalker could not resist. Here was prey that showed no fear, no awareness of danger. It began to move closer, its adaptive camouflage making it nearly invisible against the rocky ground. Jake waited, every sense alert. His breathing was slow and steady. His muscles were relaxed but ready. His grandfather's words echoed in his mind. The most dangerous moment in any hunt is when you think you know what the other animal is going to do. The shadow stalker crept closer, its 6 legs moving without making any sound, its claws extended, ready to strike. Its mouth opened, showing rows of teeth like broken glass. Jake could feel it getting closer. Not see it, not hear it, but feel it. Humans had developed this sense over millions of years of being both hunter and hunted. It was the ability to know when death was approaching from behind. The creature raised its claws, preparing for a killing strike. In that moment, Jake did something that caught everyone completely off guard. He spun around faster than anyone thought a human could move. The shadow stalker hesitated for just a moment, confused by prey that had detected its approach. In that brief instant of uncertainty, Jake did something that no creature in the galaxy expected. He did not run. He did not scream. He did not activate his emergency beacon. Jake smiled. The watching students in the observation room sat in stunned silence. On the screen, they could see the massive shadow stalker, its camouflage failing as it prepared to attack. And they could see Jake, small and seemingly helpless, looking up at the creature with an expression they had never seen on any prey animal. Before, he looked happy. "What is he doing?" whispered Ben Cooper. Commander Vex High leaned forward in his chair, all 4 eyes focused on the screen. "I do not know, but I think we are about to learn something new about humans." In the arena, Jake looked up at the 12-foot-tall predator that had killed hundreds of sentient beings. The creature's eyes were like black holes, filled with nothing but the desire to kill. Its claws were longer than Jake's entire arm. Its mouth could bite him in half without effort, and Jake felt something he had not expected to feel when facing death itself. He felt like he was finally home. The shadow stalker lunged forward with all its speed and power. But Jake was already moving, not away from the creature, but toward it. For the first time in its life, the shadow stalker was fighting prey that refused to be prey. The real test was just beginning. The shadow stalker stopped in the middle of its attack, confused by what it was seeing. In all its years of hunting across 4 different worlds, it had never encountered prey that moved toward danger instead of away from it. Jake did not try to run faster than the creature. He knew it was quicker than him. He did not try to fight it with strength. He knew it was much stronger. Instead, he did something that caught the shadow stalker completely off guard. He attacked first. Jake's combat knife flashed in the firelight as he moved forward. But he did not aim for the creature's body, where its natural armor was thickest. Instead, he went for its legs, trying to slow it down and limit its movement. The shadow stalker's claws raked across Jake's shoulder, tearing his uniform and cutting deep into his skin. Blood ran down his arm, but he did not retreat. Instead, he rolled under the creature's reach and struck at nerve points he had studied in the Academy's anatomy. Files. In the observation room, the watching students sat in shocked silence. "Impossible," whispered Commander Vex High. "He is fighting a shadow stalker in hand-to-hand combat." "But humans are supposed to be weak," said a crystalline student. "How is he still alive?" The battle was fast and violent. The shadow stalker was used to prey that either ran away or froze in terror. It had never fought something that seemed to understand combat tactics and refused to give up. Jake used everything around him as a weapon. When the creature tried to use its camouflage to disappear, Jake grabbed burning branches from his fire and waved them around, making it impossible for the shadow stalker to hide in the shadows. He led the creature into the narrow canyon where its large size became a problem instead of an advantage. The 12-foot-tall predator had trouble turning quickly in the tight space, while Jake could move more easily. But Jake's real weapon was not his knife or his fire. It was his brain. While the Shadow Stalker fought using millions of years of instinct, Jake fought using intelligence. He learned from each attack, adapted to each move, and began to predict what the creature would do next. The Shadow Stalker grew frustrated. This small, weak prey was not acting like prey at all. Every time it thought it had tricked, he found a way to escape. Every time it tried to use its superior strength, Jake turned that strength against it. Finally, the creature made a mistake. It became so angry that it abandoned its careful hunting tactics and committed to one massive attack, using all its power to try to crush Jake against the canyon wall. This was exactly what Jake had been waiting for. As the Shadow Stalker lunged forward with everything it had, Jake demonstrated the most frightening thing about human evolution. Humans had learned to use an opponent's strength as a weapon against them. Jake rolled to the side at the last second, letting the creature's own momentum carry it past him and into the stone wall. The impact was so hard that rocks fell from above, and the Shadow Stalker staggered, stunned and off balance. In that brief moment, when the creature was confused and vulnerable, Jake struck with surgical precision. His knife found the exact nerve cluster that would temporarily paralyze the Shadow Stalker's primary weapons, its claws. The great predator stumbled backward, shaking its head in confusion. For the first time in its life, it felt something it had never experienced before. Fear. This small, soft creature had done something impossible. It had wounded a Shadow Stalker in single combat and lived to tell about it. Jake did not press his attack. He could have tried to kill the creature while it was stunned, but instead he stepped back, keeping eye contact while slowly backing toward his camp. The message was clear without words. He could have finished the fight, but he chose not to. Shadow Stalker, guided by survival instincts that were millions of years old, recognized something it had never seen before. It was looking at a predator more dangerous than itself. The creature retreated into the darkness, choosing to find easier prey among the other students. From the observation deck, Ben Cooper stared in amazement. Did a human just make a Shadow Stalker run away? Commander Vex High studied the screens with all four eyes wide. In 3,000 years of Academy history, no student has ever successfully fought a Shadow Stalker in direct combat and survived. Most do not even see the creature before it kills them. Jake sat down by his fire and began treating his wounds. The cuts on his shoulder were deep, but not life-threatening. He cleaned them carefully and wrapped them with medical supplies from his kit. But he knew the real test was just beginning. The Shadow Stalker would be back, and next time it would be more careful, more dangerous. But Jake was also learning, adapting his tactics with each encounter. Over the next 2 hours, the creature made 3 more attempts to kill Jake. Each attack was more sophisticated than the last. It tried ambush tactics, using the arena's dangerous environment to set traps. It attempted to exhaust Jake by stalking him for long periods, forcing him to stay alert and active. Each time, Jake not only survived, but learned something new about his opponent. He discovered that the Shadow Stalker was intelligent enough to change its tactics, but not creative enough to think outside its natural hunting patterns. Meanwhile, other students continued to fall. Emergency beacons flashed as the creature claimed victim after victim. By the 4th hour, only 12 students remained active in the arena, but something strange was happening. The Shadow Stalker kept returning to Jake, drawn by something it had never encountered before. This small human represented a challenge unlike anything in the creature's experience. Zara, still hidden in her defensive position, watched through her scope as Jake sat calmly by his fire, reading his book while a legendary predator stalked him from the shadows. What kind of creature is he? She whispered to herself. as if he had heard her question from half a mile away. Jake looked directly at her hiding place and waved. Even from that distance, she could see him smile. Not the desperate grin of someone fighting for survival, but the relaxed expression of someone enjoying a challenging game. "He knows I am watching him," Zara said into her communicator. "How is that possible?" In the observation room, the Academy's instructors were having emergency discussions. "We need to review our classification of human capabilities," said one. "Professor, the database clearly states that humans are from a garden world with minimal predation pressure," argued another. "Then the database is wrong," Commander Vex High said firmly. "What we are witnessing suggests that humans may be the most dangerous predators in known space." As the 5th hour began, Jake stood up and walked away from his fire. He was no longer waiting for the shadow stalker to come to him. He was going hunting. The creature followed, no longer bothering to hide completely. Both predator and prey understood that their deadly dance was approaching its end. Jake led the shadow stalker to a wide clearing where the Academy's sensors could record everything clearly. He wanted the galaxy to see what was about to happen. "Computer," Jake said, speaking to the arena's artificial intelligence system, "please record this message for the Academy archives." Every remaining student and all the watching faculty focused on the main screen as Jake faced the camera. Behind him, the massive shadow stalker was visible as a dark outline against the artificial sky. "My name is Jake Martinez, representing humanity in this exchange program," he said calmly. "I want to address some misconceptions about my species that seem common throughout galactic civilization." The shadow stalker circled him warily, no longer the confident apex predator that had entered the arena 6 hours ago. "You classify Earth as a garden world, a place of peace and safety. You are completely wrong. Earth is a death world that makes Kithara Prime look like a playground. We just learned to make it seem peaceful." Jake began walking in a slow circle, never breaking eye contact with the shadow stalker. It was the dominance behavior that every predator in the galaxy understood. Every living thing on Earth is designed to kill or survive being killed. Our insects carry diseases that can destroy entire ecosystems. Our weather can level cities. Our oceans contain predators that would eat your shadow stalkers for breakfast. The creature made a tentative attack, but Jake sidestepped it easily, not even pausing in his speech. "But the most dangerous thing on Earth is not the storms, the earthquakes, the bears, or the sharks. The most dangerous thing on Earth is us, humans. We did not just survive on a death world. We conquered it so completely that we convinced ourselves it was safe." Jake stopped walking and faced the shadow stalker directly. The creature, responding to instincts millions of years old, recognized the posture of a superior predator claiming territory. "You want to know what makes humans special? We are not the strongest, fastest, or toughest. What makes us dangerous is that we never learned when to quit." Jake reached into his pack and pulled out something that made everyone watching gasp in surprise. It was a collar made from braided metal wire. The test was about to end in a way no one had ever imagined. Jake held up the metal collar so everyone could see it clearly. The shadow stalker stopped moving, its 6 eyes focused on the strange object in the human's hands. "You see," Jake continued, still speaking to the recording system, "I was not fighting for my life these past 6 hours. I was training a new companion." The watching students and faculty sat in shocked silence as Jake's words sank in. Commander Vex High leaned forward in his chair, all 4 eyes wide with disbelief. "The shadow stalker's behavior suddenly makes sense now," Jake explained, walking slowly toward the massive predator. "Its repeated attacks on me, its growing caution, its obvious confusion. These were not the actions of a hunter stalking prey. They were the actions of an animal being domesticated." The great creature stood perfectly still as Jake approached. There was no aggression in its posture now, no preparation to attack. It watched Jake with something that looked almost like curiosity. Humans have a special relationship with dangerous predators, Jake said, now standing just a few feet from the shadow stalker. We do not just fight them or run from them. We make them part of our family. We did this with wolves, turning them into dogs. We did this with wild cats, making them into house pets. We did this with horses, eagles, bears, and dozens of other species. Jake reached out slowly and touched the creature's scaled hide. The shadow stalker did not pull away or try to attack. Instead, it made a sound that was almost like purring. The difference between humans and every other species in the galaxy is simple, Jake continued. When you see a dangerous predator, you think, how do I avoid it? When humans see a dangerous predator, we think, how do I make it useful? Jake gently placed the collar around the shadow stalker's neck. The creature that had terrorized the galaxy, that had killed hundreds of sentient beings, that had been captured only after a massive military campaign, stood quietly and let a human put a collar on it. End recording. Jake said to the computer. The arena fell completely silent, except for the sound of Jake scratching behind the shadow stalker's hearing organs. The creature made that purring sound again, leaning into Jake's touch like a giant. Deadly pet. The examination is officially over, Commander Vex-High announced, but his voice sounded weak and confused. Ben Cooper was the first to speak from the observation deck. Jake ... Did you just tame a shadow stalker? Jake grinned and patted his new companion on its armored head. Meet Rex. He is going to need a bigger food bowl than most pets. The shadow stalker, now apparently named Rex, followed Jake toward the arena exit like an obedient dog. Its massive claws clicked on the stone floor, but there was no threat in the sound now. It stayed close to Jake's side, occasionally looking up at him as if waiting for instructions. Commander Vex-High stared at the display screens showing Jake walking calmly out of the arena with a legendary killing machine following him like a trained animal. Computer, the commander said quietly, immediately classify all information about human capabilities as top secret. Contact the Galactic Council and inform them that our assessment of Garden Worlds may need complete revision. When Jake emerged from the arena, he found all his surviving classmates waiting for him. Zara stood at the front of the group, her golden eyes wide with amazement and something that might have been fear. How? She asked. How did you know you could do that? Jake considered the question seriously, while Rex settled down beside him like a huge armored dog. On Earth, we have a saying, there are no dangerous animals, only dangerous situations. I just changed the situation. Grok, the massive Korthani warrior, stepped forward. His gray skin was even darker than usual, and his metal teeth showed in what might have been respect. Human Jake, I owe you an apology. We underestimated your species. We all did, said Zix, the Zephyrian who had mocked humans for being weak. Her compound eyes reflected the light as she looked at Rex with obvious nervousness. Your people are not what our databases said they were. Jake scratched Rex behind what passed for ears, producing more of those purring sounds. The databases are not wrong, exactly. Earth is a beautiful place with blue skies and green forests. But beauty can be the most dangerous thing of all, because it hides the truth underneath. More students gathered around, keeping a safe distance from Rex, but clearly fascinated by what they had witnessed. Even the crystal-like crystalline students, who usually showed no emotions, seemed excited. What is the truth? Asked Ben Cooper. Jake looked around at all the alien faces watching him. The truth is that humans spent millions of years learning to survive on a world where everything was trying to kill us. Not just the big predators, but the tiny ones too. Diseases, parasites, poisonous plants, natural disasters, climate changes that could wipe out entire regions. Rex made a contented sound and rested his massive head against Jake's leg. We learned to adapt to anything, eat almost anything, live almost anywhere. We learned to work together to bring down prey much larger and stronger than ourselves. Most importantly, we learned that giving up meant dying, so we simply stopped giving up. Commander Vex High approached the group, his expression serious. Cadet Martinez, what you have accomplished today will change how the galaxy views humanity. But I must ask, did you plan this from the beginning? Jake smiled. Not exactly. But when I read about shadow stalkers, I noticed something interesting in the reports. Every description mentioned how intelligent they were, how they could adapt, their hunting methods, how they showed problem-solving abilities. Those are not the traits of a simple killing machine. Those are the traits of a species that can learn. And if they can learn, Ben said, understanding beginning to show in his blue face, they can be taught. Exactly, Jake said. Rex here is not evil or mindless. He is just a very effective hunter, doing what evolution designed him to do. All I had to do was show him that working with me was more interesting than killing me. Rex lifted his head and looked around at all the assembled students. Several of them stepped back nervously, but the great predator showed no aggression. He seemed content to stay close to Jake and observe his new environment. Over the following days, news of Jake's achievement spread throughout the academy and beyond. Military commanders from across the galaxy requested copies of the examination. Recording. Scientists wanted to study Rex and learn how the domestication had been possible. Jake found himself the center of attention everywhere he went, with Rex following him like a massive armored shadow. The creature attended Jake's classes, slept outside his dormitory room, and even learned to navigate the academy's corridors without damaging anything. More importantly, the way other students treated Jake changed completely. Where before they had seen weakness, they now saw hidden strength. Where before they had seen a primitive species, they now saw sophisticated intelligence. You know, Zara said one day as they sat in the academy cafeteria, I have been thinking about what you said about Earth being more dangerous than Cathara Prime. Jake looked up from feeding Rex some kind of alien meat that the creature seemed to enjoy. What about it? If your world really is that dangerous, and humans learn to not just survive but thrive there, what does that make your people when they leave Earth and go to easier worlds? Jake considered this question while Rex made happy purring sounds. Around them, other students continued their conversations, but Jake noticed that many of them glanced over at his table with expressions of new respect. I suppose, Jake said finally, it makes us very good at adapting to new situations. 6 months later, Jake graduated at the top of his class. Rex became the Academy's first officially recognized non-sentient combat partner, and a new training program was established to study human methods of predator interaction. The Galactic Council received a formal report recommending that humanity's application to join the military alliance be approved immediately. The report's conclusion was simple. Humans represent the most effective warrior species ever encountered, precisely because they do not think like warriors. They think like predators who learn to use their intelligence. But perhaps the most significant change was in how the galaxy classified worlds and species. The old categories of garden worlds and death worlds were revised to include a new designation, adaptation worlds, planets, that produced species capable of thriving anywhere in the galaxy. Earth was the first world to receive this classification. Jake kept in touch with his family through regular video calls. His sister Lisa was particularly amused when she saw Rex during one of their conversations. So let me get this straight, she said, laughing. You went to space school and came back with the galaxy's most dangerous predator as a pet? Jake scratched. Rex behind his hearing organs, producing the familiar purring sound. Not a pet, Liza. A partner. There is a difference. Right, Lisa said, still smiling. Just promise me you will house train him before you bring him home for the holidays. Jake looked at Rex, who was currently using one of his massive claws to delicately pick food from between his razor-sharp teeth. I think that might take some work. As Jake's first year at the academy ended, one fact had become clear to every student and faculty member: humanity's application to join the galactic military alliance had not been a request for protection, it had been a job application, and the galaxy had just seen humanity's resume.